My name is Vanessa Clark, and I'm 30 years old. This morning, as I sit at my dining room table, I have a split lip and a bruise blooming across my left cheek like a twisted flower. Last night, my husband, Terrence, struck me with the back of his hand. And I didn't say a word. I just stood there, tasting my own blood, feeling the sting spread across my skin like fire. But this morning, when Terrence came downstairs expecting me to cower and submit like I always did, his smile vanished the moment he saw who was sitting at my table. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, in a historic district where Spanish moss hangs from oak trees like ghosts of the past. It's beautiful here, the kind of beauty that hides ugly things happening behind closed doors. I've been an elementary school teacher for 8 years, spending my life surrounded by bright-eyed kids and classroom posters about kindness and courage. I never imagined I'd need that courage myself. Terrence and I have been married for 5 years. We used to say we were each other's everything. But when someone becomes your everything, they can also become your worst nightmare. The dining room table looked like something out of a magazine. I'd set it with our wedding china, white plates with delicate gold trim. I laid out my grandmother's hand-embroidered tablecloth, placed fresh gardenias from the garden, the same flowers I carried on our wedding day. I'd cooked a feast. Cheese grits with sharp cheddar, scrambled eggs, thick-cut bacon, buttermilk biscuits from scratch, and fresh fruit. The smell of butter, coffee, and something else filled the air. Resolve. I sat at the head of the table in my navy dress, the one I wore to my grandmother's funeral. My pearl earrings dangled from my ears, my hair pulled back in a tight bun. The bruise on my cheek was dark purple now, spreading from cheekbone to jaw. My lip was swollen, split where it caught on my tooth when his hand connected. I looked like a warrior who'd been through battle. At 8:05, I heard his footsteps on the stairs. He walked in wearing weekend clothes, polo shirt and khakis, hair damp from the shower. He looked at the table, then at me. His eyes landed on the bruise he'd put there, and he smiled. Not regret or shame, but satisfaction. He pulled out his chair and reached for a biscuit. "You finally learned, huh?" His voice was casual, almost cheerful. "You remember how to be a wife. This is how it should have been all along, baby. You just needed to understand who's in charge." At exactly 8:12, the doorbell rang. His smile faltered. "Who the hell is that?" I stood up slowly. "I invited them," I said, my voice calm and cold. "And you're going to sit there and wait." I opened the door. Detective Lisa Hartwell in her uniform, badge catching the morning light. Pastor Jerome in his black clergy shirt and white collar, face serious and sad. My sister, Denise, tears streaming down her face, clutching her purse like a lifeline. They all looked at my face, and I saw the flash of rage in their eyes. They followed me into the dining room. When Terrence saw them, all color drained from his face. The biscuit fell from his hand, hitting the china plate with a soft clink, crumbling into pieces. "Vanessa? What is this?" I stayed standing. Pastor Jerome and Denise stood to my right. Detective Hartwell stood to my left, her hand resting near her handcuffs. "This," I said, "is the consequence you've been running from for 3 years, Terrence. This is the reckoning. To understand how we got here, you need to know our story. I didn't always have a split lip. There was a time when his voice was the sweetest sound in the world to me. We met at a young professionals Bible study group when we were 22. We married at 25, me in a simple cream dress with gardenias, him in a sharp gray suit, both of us radiating joy outside Bethlehem Church. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Terrence was a middle school history teacher. The kids loved him. He had a way of making history come alive. I was proud of him. We volunteered together, had Friday date nights at a pizza place near the water. He'd send me sweet texts. "Can't wait to see you tonight, my queen." We had a good life. We bought our row house right after marriage, poured every penny into the down payment. But I need you to understand, I didn't marry a monster. I married a good man who became a monster. Watching that transformation was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. The change started 3 years ago, right after our second anniversary. A female student, 14 years old, accused Terrence of inappropriate contact during tutoring. The accusation hit us like a bomb. Terrence was suspended pending investigation. I knew it wasn't true. After 2 months, the case was dismissed. The girl had made it up, but the damage was done. People remember accusations, not exonerations. Parents requested their children be moved from his classes. Colleagues avoided him. The school district quietly moved him to a different school across town. His reputation, built over 6 years, was destroyed. I watched him break under the weight of it. The drinking started. Just a beer at night, then 3, then whiskey. He'd come home and go straight to the liquor cabinet, his anger building. It started small, little comments I almost didn't notice. If you'd been more active on social media during the investigation, maybe people would believe me. You're so quiet at church. People probably think you have doubts about me too. Everything became my fault. Then the control began. He took over our finances, gave me access only to my teacher's salary. When I protested, he said he needed to feel in control of something. I let him, thinking it was just stress. He isolated me from friends. Going to gossip about me with your teacher friends? It was easier to just stay home. I stopped going to girls' nights, stopped calling my sister as much. I shrank my world down to just him and me. 2 years ago came the first real incident. I made his favorite dinner, chicken parmesan. He came home drunk and said, "The chicken is overcooked. You can't even cook anymore." When I apologized, he picked up the plate and threw it at the wall. It shattered, marinara sauce everywhere. He told me to clean it up. I told myself it was the alcohol, the stress. But it happened again and again. I began to live on eggshells, learning to read his moods by the sound of his car in the driveway. About a year and a half ago, it got physical. We argued over $60 I spent on work shoes. He grabbed my arm, digging his fingers into my flesh. When he let go, I had 5 bruises, 1 for each finger. I wore long sleeves for a week. That night, I almost left. I packed a bag. When Terrence saw it, he fell to his knees crying, begging forgiveness. He promised he'd stop drinking, get help. I unpacked the bag, but he had learned there were no real consequences. He could hurt me, and I would stay. The verbal abuse worsened. Elementary school teacher, he'd sneer, playing with crayons all day while I'd deal with real problems. He'd compare me to other women who were more supportive, who knew how to keep their mouths shut, who were actually attractive. I started avoiding mirrors, wearing baggier clothes. I was shrinking in every sense. About a year ago, I tried to leave. I found a tiny studio apartment, 400 square feet with big windows. I pictured myself there with a cup of tea, not worrying about his mood. I filled out an application. That night, Terrence found it in my purse. His face was red, jaw clenched. "What is this?" "Terrence, I can't do this anymore. I think we need some space." "Space? After everything I've been through? You want to abandon me too?" "I'm not abandoning you. Maybe counseling." He stepped closer. "You're not leaving, Vanessa. You made a vow. For better or worse. You belong here. You belong to me. Do you understand?" I couldn't breathe. He ripped up the application and threw the pieces in the trash. I realized something terrible. I was trapped. The men who used to send me sweet texts now thought of me as property. The months that followed were the darkest of my life. I went to work, taught my second graders about kindness and bravery, came home, and tried to be invisible. I felt like a ghost in my own house. My sister Denise started asking questions. "V, are you okay?" I lied. Lisa, my friend from church who's a detective, also noticed something was wrong. She gave me her card, but I put it away and tried to forget. Terrence stopped apologizing when he grabbed me, shoved me, backed me into corners. I started to believe maybe I deserved this, that I had failed him so completely. 3 months ago, he started coming home late smelling of whiskey and cigarettes. Last month, I moved to the guest room, claiming my back hurt. He didn't argue. Last night, everything broke. I was making tea when I heard his car. The door slammed hard, never good. He was drunker than usual. He saw the apartment application on the counter. "What the hell is this? You're trying to leave me again." "I can't do this anymore," I said, voice shaking. "I'm leaving, Terrence. I can't keep being afraid in my own home." He tore the application into confetti and threw it at me. "You're not going anywhere. You belong to me." I tried to explain I was trying to save myself. That's when he slapped me across the face, hard enough to split my lip. I tasted blood, but worse than the physical pain was the realization. Everything had changed. He walked out, telling me to clean myself up. As I stood there, blood dripping onto my robe, something inside me broke. Not my spirit, the chains I'd been wearing for 3 years. The chains of hope, fear and love. What was left was clarity. I needed witnesses. I needed proof. So at midnight, with a split lip and bruising cheek, I began to plan. First, I called Denise. I told her everything. The drinking, the anger, the control, the fear, the slap. She gasped and sobbed. When I finished, she said, "I'm coming right now." "No. Come at 8 a.m. Can you do that?" "What are you planning?" "Justice. Will you be here?" "I'll be there." Second, I called Pastor Jerome. I told him enough. The anger, the bruises, the slap. "What do you need from me, Sister Vanessa?" "I need you at my house tomorrow, 8 a.m. I need you to be a witness." "I'll be there." "You're not alone, sister." Third, I called Lisa. I told her everything. Being a cop, she went into professional mode. "Where is he now?" "Asleep upstairs." "Do I need to send a car?" "I'm safe for now, but I need you tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'm going to confront him with witnesses, then file charges. I should arrest him now." "No. This is my house, my life. I need to do this my way. Please, Lisa, trust me. 8 a.m. But if anything happens before then, call 911. I had 7 hours to transform this house from my prison into my courtroom. I started cooking. For 3 years, I'd cooked meals he criticized or threw at walls. But this meal would be different. This would be the last meal I ever cooked for him, and it would be perfect. Around 3 a.m., I thought about covering the bruise with concealer. I held it in my hand, then threw it in the trash. No more hiding. No more protecting him from consequences. At 4 a.m., I installed the Ring doorbell camera I'd ordered weeks ago, but hadn't had courage to set up. Everything at my front door would now be recorded. By 5 a.m., I set the table with wedding china, spread my grandmother's tablecloth, arranged fresh gardenias. This was the most important breakfast of my life. At 8:12, the doorbell rang. I stood with Detective Hartwell, Pastor Jerome, and Denise beside me. Terrence looked up, fear finally replacing control. "This is your reckoning," I said. I told them everything. 3 years of escalating abuse, isolation, fear. Last night, he'd crossed the final line. "You hit me, and now you face the consequences." Pastor Jerome spoke of disappointment and broken trust. Detective Hartwell announced formal charges, assault and battery. My sister's voice shook with anger at what he'd done, at the years he'd stolen. Terrence begged. "I was drunk. I'll get help. We're young, we can fix this." "You destroyed your own life," I replied. "I'm just making sure you face it." Lisa handcuffed him. The metal clicked loudly. As she led him away, he turned back. "You're going to regret this. You'll be alone. Who's going to want you now?" I met his eyes. "Maybe I will be alone, but I'll be alive. I'll be free. And I'm only 30 years old. I have my whole life ahead of me, a life without fear." The door closed. In the silence, I finally let myself fall apart, grieving what we'd been, mourning the years I'd lost, but breathing freely for the first time in 3 years. My sister held me as I cried. Pastor Jerome prayed over me. When the tears stopped, I looked around my dining room, at the perfect breakfast, the wedding china, the gardenias, and I knew this wasn't an ending. This was a beginning. I was 30 years old, and for the first time in 3 years, I had a future that was mine alone. A future where I could rebuild, where I could heal, where I could become the woman I was always meant to be. And that was worth everything.